Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I am on the other side of the shop that you don't get to see all that often, and I am in the squat position, which I am not in all that often, so I need to keep this intro short. When I set my dust collection system up, I did not leave an extra port on this side of the shop to hook up any sort of floor sweep, so I can't vacuum off my equipment or the floor. As a result, I am left with piles of sawdust just like this all over this side of the shop. Even when I'm not using my equipment, me just walking around in here is kicking that sawdust up into the air. I am sick of it, and not only that, it is making me sick. I gotta solve this. Oh, that was good, that was good. Oh. Mom, so over here at the bandsaw, this dust collection is horrible. I've got a hose here with a glass gate over to here, and that will go to the back of the bandsaw down there. There's a little port on the back that you can hook the hose up to, but it doesn't get anything on the actual surface up here, and it doesn't get anything down there. So I need a way to attach my hose to not only the back of the bandsaw, but then have that floor sweep clean up all of the surface on here so that this dust isn't thrown up into the air, into my lungs, or on my projects. So not only do I want to come up with a better solution for this bandsaw, but you can see the end of my run is right over here with this blast gate. And that just has a hose that feeds onto the top of my drum sander as well as my planer. I just have this 90-degree fitting here, and it'll sit on there, and it's relatively secure, but if it's moving around or it's doing too much, you can see it's not really tight. And I don't want to have to tighten that worm gear and loosen the worm gear each and every time I want to move this around from equipment to equipment. So I need to fix that as well. And the biggest offender on this side of the shop is this jointer. I never really used the jointer, but over the last 6 months, I've been using it a lot more lately. So a couple days ago, I just put on this really crude dust collector shoot down here. Looks ugly, but it works well. So what I need to do is come up with a way to attach the hose to this as well. The jointer is sitting over here, and the dust collector port is way over there. So I don't want to just hook a hose up to there and just run it along the ground and come up into this piece of equipment over here, because then anytime I want to move my drum sander or my planer, or even just sweep the floor for that matter, this hose would be in the way. So I need to come up with a way to make that hose detachable, and then also an easy way I can store it against that back wall there. So I think I've come up with a pretty good solution on how to solve the dust collection problems on this side of the shop. Instead of cutting in a new Y and put it in a new blast gate right here, I'm just going to take advantage of this one that's already installed. I've got this short 3-foot hose that goes onto the back of the bandsaw with its own plastic adapter. I'm going to remove all that, and I ordered a longer hose from Rockler. I think that actually comes today, which is pretty awesome. Then I'm just going to take some wood and some magnets, and I'm going to cut my own dust collection adapter. It's the same as the 3D printed ones you see all over the place. You can buy them on Etsy, Amazon, and I think Woodcraft now has their own style, their own version of that. Slightly different, but it works just the same. So I'm going to take that adapter, and since this is metal, I'll be able to just stick that adapter right to the back of the bandsaw port and take care of the dust collecting with the bandsaw. While I have that port, I can take that over to the jointer, hook that up to the jointer while that's being used. And if I need to, I can take that port and I can sweep the floor. I can clean off any of the equipment or anything over on this side of the shop. Since I'm already going to be cutting the adapters for this, I am going to cut 3 adapters for this setup as well. I don't like having to move this 90 around and have it be loose. If it's on there and I pull the planer, it could fall off. I don't want to shoot chips all over the place. So I'm going to cut 2 of the tool style adapters that are going to go on the drum sander and the planer, and then 1 more that is exactly like the one that's going to be on this hose to go into this port right here. And then that way I can switch between machines very easily. I'm going to cover this up, and then I'm going to use the CNC to cut basically a 4-inch hole right down the middle, and I'm going to put magnets around there, and then that will be my quick disconnect for this jointer. So off camera, I pounded in these magnets. That's not really worth filming. I just pounded those in and used a little bit of CA glue just to keep them on there. And then I screwed it on there. So now I have this port here. And yeah, it's pretty ugly inside there, but it is all sealed up. And I think it's going to work out perfect. So here's the adapter. I've got both of those donuts glued on here. And because this is edge grain to edge grain, that's going to be a really strong connection. So I just layered up 2 of those. So it's about 1 inch thick there. Let's try this out. Moment of truth. That's awesome. That is, wow. That is on there really tight. Love it. I think that's going to work out perfect. So CNC is finished. I moved the router out of the way, and this is the part about running a CNC that I absolutely love. I love problem solving, and I love looking at these files when I actually do set them up correctly, which is not all that often, but having everything sit here just how I want it, everything laid out correctly. It's all cleaned up. That only took a couple of minutes with the oscillating spindle sander and my actual orbital sander. But now I've got these pieces cleaned up. They look great. Like I said, I'm going to glue 2 adapters onto the hose connector. That way I just have a longer field there that's about 1 inch that I can land that hose on there and tighten that clamp. So that's going to work out well. I just have to install the magnets. Then once the magnets are installed on the 2 hose adapter connectors, I will make sure that the polarity on both of those are the same. And then when I do the actual tool adapters, I will make sure that I reverse the polarity. I always tend to get that wrong, so I'm going to take the utmost care to maybe get that right the first time. And then same thing with these. I'm just going to use one of these adapters because this actually sits down over the top of the tool. So this is just a longer registration point. 1/2 inch would probably work just fine, but I cut an extra donut out of there. So that way, again, it's 1 inch thick, and that will be able to sit right down on the tool. And that'll stop it from wanting to rock off. It would have to actually lift up to come off. So I think that'll give me a better chance at keeping all of these secure. The donuts glued onto the back of these, so now these are ready for the magnets. I've got my proof of concept one that's going to go on the jointer. This is the one that goes in the hose, so I need to match this with this one here. This is also the one that's going to go in the hose for the drum sander and planer. So I just need to make sure the polarity on both of these are the same. Then I will just reverse the polarity for these 2. So there we go. We've got the 2 for the tools with the larger port that is just under 4-inch ID. And then you've got the 2 for the hoses. And this actual outside of this is just under 4 inches. So there we go. Let those dry and I will put it all together and show you guys what I got. I do want to take a quick pause in the video right here and show you these. These were my original proof of concept. You can see these are quite different than the final design. These are just some random shape. I think they're 10-sided. So would that be a decagon? I don't know if that's even the real word for it, but these only have 4 magnets in them. The final version has 6. So that's 50% more magnets. So I imagine that's 50% more holding power. And I also didn't like the way that these shapes they weren't user friendly, meaning you couldn't just slap them together because the magnets aren't lined up equally on each facet around here. So if you didn't line these up correctly like this, right, they don't want to stick together. And even though they look like they should right now because all the facets are in line, the magnets aren't in line. So I did put a little tick mark there on the tool side and then a tick mark there on the hose side, so that way you could line these up. But I didn't want to have to deal with trying to line up these tick marks and everything else. Figured I could do better, why not? So that's why I altered the final design. It has a much better form factor, and also it has the 6 magnets over the 4. So any of you who are interested in cutting the final version for yourself, I will have that updated. They won't be the ugly version that these are. They will be the final version with the 6 magnets. It will have 2 different versions in there. It will have the version that goes in the hose that has a smaller OD on the donut, and then it will have the size that fits standard 4-inch ports on the tool. So you can cut as many of those as you need. I'll also have a link to the magnets that I use. If you don't want to use the same size, you don't have to. Just alter the file according to the magnets you have. I've got everything hooked up and I am absolutely loving it. I love the fact now that I have this port here. I can use this to vacuum the pile of sawdust on the floor. I can run this over to the jointer when I'm using that. I can hook this up to the back of the bandsaw there when I need to use that. And then any dust that gets on the top of here, I can clean that off. I can reach actually quite a bit with this thing. So I will have overlap between the cleanup port on that side and this cleanup port on this side. I put a piece of metal up here. This is just a cheap piece of sheet metal. That way I can have that there. I've got the hose out of the way. And over here is just the same. I'm extremely happy. I've got the 2 adapters on the tool ports, and then I've got the one in the hose right here. That'll just go on there. Pretty darn sturdy. I don't think that's going to come off. Same thing as the planer. I was having problems before with the planer. The vibrations or whatever was getting 90 to work its way up. So now that that's on there, I mean, that's on there good. I don't think I got anything to worry about that. So I'm pretty happy. Now I can clean this side of the shop just as well as the other side of the shop. So guys, happy making.